Ein Stift. Ja, ja. Dann ist das nicht so lange.
Hello everyone. I'm happy to be there tonight. Most of you, I suppose, have never heard me speaking, because most of the time I'm speaking in French, because I'm French. So I'm manager of a company called Temesis. We are working on web quality and web accessibility, and one of our main job currently is to update the French accessibility guidelines done by the French government. So one of our job is to integrate WCAG 2.1 into this new French government guidelines. So first, before to go to the talk, just want to know you a bit more. If it's the first time for you to be there, you already all well-known WCAG 2.0 or not at all. So are you a developer, designer? So there are not many people, so I think we can just quickly, if you can quickly tell me who you are, what you do, and what's the level of your knowledge. Okay, so
my name is Aina. I'm a developer. UI developer, and yeah, I work for a company, it's a French company actually, Dog. And my main job right now is in also update our user interfaces and design system to be accessible. So I'm familiar with the web content accessibility guidelines. We aim to be compliant with 2.0 right now, but I have been already taking a look.
I'm Ben. I'm front-end developer for a wine e-commerce startup. I don't know much about WCAG 2 or 2.1, so yeah.
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Tim. I work for a company called ResearchGate. I'm an engineer working on our design system mostly and some tooling around that. But also a bit on my mission basically to make the platform more accessible. I was forced to read the whole web content accessibility guidelines back in uni. Something I wasn't too grateful for back then, but yeah, it's good to have that kind of at the back of your head. I haven't really looked into the new success criteria yet. That's why I'm here.
So, hi, Elizabeth. I work in product, so I'm not a developer. I don't know much about standards, but my aim is to try and convince my colleagues that we need to care about it. So I'm trying to be an evangelist to get us on board. So.
Hi, my name is Christian. I work for a nonprofit called Gesundheitscloud, and obviously, when you're in e-health and nonprofit, then it's even more of a no-brainer than it is to begin with to be accessible. And my WCAG knowledge so far is that it exists, and evidently there's an update to it, and I'm here to hear more about that.
Hi, I'm Gunnar. I have a computer science background and also UX background. So yeah, I'm a developer. But I'm not the kind of developer who does all that stuff that a product owner or designer wants me to do. Because yeah, I have an eye on it if it fits together. So, for instance, if the designer puts a dark gray type on light gray background color, I change the colors without asking. so yeah, if you need somebody like me at your company or project, come talk to me.
I'm Stephanie. I'm a software engineer, but I'm focused on front end and UI. And and I work at Microsoft on the To-Do app. And I'm familiar with the guidelines, but not so much the different versions. I reference them a lot, but I'm still learning a lot about accessibility and trying to make our app accessible.
I'm Johannes. I'm a design researcher, so working a lot with users, and I work with Stephanie on the Microsoft To-Do app. And not so familiar with the accessibility guidelines, more with the design part of it. But not so into detail.
I'm Bernard. I'm I would say a backend developer, but a bit like Ghana, I'm also helping clients not to do huge accessibility mistakes by seeing their design as a picture and not as a fact. So I try to fix some things before the client recognizes that it's not matching the design, and then I tell them, okay, it's for accessibility reasons.
Hi, I'm Christiana, and I work as a front-end developer, and I'm familiar also with the accessibility guidelines, but also with the German format of it more. And I'm very curious about the 2.1 now.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a web designer with a specialization on UX and accessibility design. So I'm now most of the AA standards for design parts. And I'm part of the accessibility team of WordPress. Do all the stuff about WordPress.
Yeah, I'm Christian. I'm freelance front-end developer. Working also often for accessibility for governmental websites, so for Bitweek2, German guidelines I know a little bit, and something of WCAG, but not by heart.
Okay, so mixed audience. So WCAG is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So basically, if you know WCAG 2.0, it's the same things, but with some extra stuff. So everything you know, we will keep it, and we will add some new things. It's a bit lot, because WCAG, current WCAG was already a lot of things. There's a lot of guidelines, so now we have 17 more. We start to be really big, but we will try to give you a real example of this new criteria. You will see that it's not that complicated. If you really want to go into details, you will see that there is a lot of exceptions, because WCAG has to be more usable as possible, but at the same time, the language they use is quite difficult. So sometimes there is a lack of some real examples, so that's why I will try to do tonight. There is 4 subjects that the new criteria are focused on. Mainly it was because of the mobile. WCAG 2.0 was not created when the mobile was everywhere, so there is a lot of criteria that are not relevant anymore, and that need some update. And also there is new things needed, because you will not use your phone as the same way as you use a desktop computer. So there is new criteria to look at. People with low vision. One of the critics about previous version of WCAG is that it's mainly based for, has been done for blind users or screen reader user, and not a lot for other kind of disability. So there is new criteria about low vision, people with cognitive disability, and people who will use voice recognition to interact with their computer. As I said, there is 17 new criteria, but tonight I will just speak about 12 new criteria that are level A and AA. Because mainly we know that there is a AAA, but I maybe need someone that have done website AAA compliance. So It's more like a level that you will go and see there is some criteria, and maybe sometimes cherry pick some of the criteria, but most of the people will focus on a single A and double A level. So, first new criteria was about orientation. You must not force someone to use a specific orientation of your device. So if you have to do something like that to read the content, most of the time it's not good. Because some people, because I don't like to read like that, but for some people it's not possible to do at all. For example, there is some user in the wheelchair, the electric wheelchair, that will have their phone or iPad that is fixed to the wheelchair, and they will not be able to move it. So for some of them, it will not be possible to interact with the app if when I turn the device, they say, oh, sorry, you can't use the device in landscape mode, you have to turn your device. You will say nobody will do that. But yes, some people will do that. For example, imagine I am quite rich and I want to buy some shoes. Sorry, try to click OK. So imagine I am very rich and I want to buy some clothing in the Kenzo website. So I just use my iPad because I'm rich. And then when I use my iPad on the Kenzo website, this is what they display. So this website is optimized for landscape orientation. Please turn your device. Okay, I'm not sure it's the first thing I want to read when I arrive on a website, even if I'm using my iPad. It makes no sense. So it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense technically for them because I think they have done like a mobile version of the website. So not the best decision, but it's the decision they made. So they have a specific version of the website. So they do like device detection, and if they detect this kind of device, they will go to the more specific mobile version. But I'm not sure that it's a good thing to do for people, and for people with disability that will not be able to turn their device, they will never be able to shop at all on the website. So it's really a big issue. So here, it's both a design problem and a technical problem, because in this specific case, as I said, it's because they have a mobile version. So the decision to have a specific mobile version was an IT decision. And I work for some other customer in the luxury brands, and most of the time, sometimes they do some design that will never work because they have been made to be read like a landscape mode or a portrait mode. But they never do the other design. So for this kind of specific case, for example, we can say if you are doing a piano application, a piano is the landscape. You will not be able to do a piano in portrait. So for this kind of case, there is some exception in WCAG, but otherwise you will have to allow your user to use the device the way they want. Second criteria, let me use my autocomplete settings. So if, I don't know if you are familiar with the autocomplete attribute, it's a new attribute in HTML5. There is two ways to use it. If you use it by default, it will just record everything you type in the field, and the next time you will try to input some text in it, it will show you what you have already inputted, and then you will just click on the list. But otherwise, you also can use it by creating a profile in your browser and entering, for example, your name, your address, your email, and then if you go to a form that uses specific kind of value for the autocomplete attribute, it will allow you to really quickly fill all the forms automatically based on what you have recorded in your browser. So for people with motor disability, it's really important because it allows them to quickly fill forms and not type in text, because for them it's really difficult. So it's really important to do. It's quite simple because it's just based on the usage of one attribute in HTML. They say the complete attribute. So as you see, you are just adding this attribute with different values. So I will show you an example of how it's working. So here I create fake forms, and I'm using Chrome, and in Chrome I've created profile. So when I select my profile, it autofills every field in the forms.
Netflix.
So there is also some extensions sometimes that do that, or software maybe that also can be used, but all of them will use this autocomplete attribute. So it looks to be really, really simple. The only problem is that you have a lot of values and quite clear, but for some of them a bit less. EMPP, I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with that. There is a lot of address also. Address level 1, level 2, 3, 4. It's because depending on the country, you don't have the same structure for the address, so you need different kind of values. You have everything related to the e-commerce, like for the credit card, name, given name, etc. So the only problem there is that you will have to go to your current application, look at every form in your application to see if there is something that you are recording in the form that is close to this kind of values, and then you have to implement the autocomplete attribute using the correct values. Also, for the moment, it's not the case, but at some point it will be useful for people with expression difficulties and communication difficulties, because based on that, some software will inject in the code some icons, for example, and it will be easier for them to understand what kind of information they have to fill in the forms. For example, for their name, they will have their photo, or for the credit card, they will have an icon with a dollar sign, or I don't know, and it will help people with some cognitive disability and to understand what the kind of information the form is requiring. Criteria for people with low vision. Let me choose the side of my display. So here, a lot of people with low vision will try to zoom the page. We already have criteria in WCAG. We are requiring to allow user to increase text size at 200%. But no, the problem with that is if the user wants to have a bigger value than 200%, most of the time it will create some scroll bar, horizontal scroll bar. So for user, it's really difficult when for some people they zoom like 100% or 1000%, and they will have to manage to do a lot of movement to read all the screen, because there is a huge screen scroll bar, horizontal scroll bar, or vertical. So what has been required now in WCAG is the fact to do some responsive website. So it's quite normal, to do that, but at the same time there is still a lot of websites that are still not responsive. So, for example, if you look at the Bundestag, until 2017, the website was not responsive, and so because have the web archive. So this is a website. Let me show you. So this is a website from on the web archive from 2017. So as you see,
Oh my god.
I zoom at 400%, so I have to scroll everything and read like that. So it's a bit difficult and annoying. So, and if I look at the new website, as the new website is responsive, you see that it's not perfect, but at least sometimes. I don't know that. In some case, I think, here, for example, you see that the field here is cut, but I can scroll at this part. It's a bit strange, but most of the text can be read correctly.
I'm sorry, where there's 600 slides?
Sorry?
Where there's 600 slides, can you just scroll up a little bit? There, oh no, 2,800. Oh my god.
The record is breaking. So as you see, doing responsive website is also good for accessibility for this because it will allow you to having a reflow of everything that fits inside one column, so it will be easier for them to read the content. One of the tricky aspects of this criteria is that it's required to have no lot of information or functionality. In theory, it's good, but in some cases, I think that it's also good to adapt the content. For example, if you have a big text, sometimes it's good to have a reduced version of this text on mobile because people will not consume the content with the same way in mobile and on desktop. Also on mobile you have some, for example, you have geolocation that is more useful than on desktop, so maybe you will have some features that will not be very interesting in desktop mode. So you can hide things, but in theory you need to be able to find everything on the mobile version and on the desktop version. Designers. Some of the designers already hate accessibility, but they will hate us more because for now, most of the most well-known criteria by the designer is the one about contrast. So, yeah, they are supposed to stop to use a light gray on white background, but they remain. Still do that, but in theory they must stop. But now we have a new criteria, not only about the text on background, but also about graphics, icons, and statistics. For examples, if you have made, I don't know why, but if you have made like a custom checkbox, like light green one, this checkbox must have a ratio of 3.0. So this is the difference you have here and here, because that will allow user to be able to see this checkbox. So as it's an interactive component in the page, it's really important that the user will be able to see it. Also, if you have like this kind of burger menu, the same things, we need to be sure that it's not the best way to do it, but if you decide to have one, you need to be sure that the people will be able to see it. Also, if you have some background, you use some background to create the shape of your fields, or if you do something like that, a graph. I'm not a designer, so I've done this ugly version, but you also can just do the black line, not the whole graph. So everything that is a graphic that lets user know, for example, a play button on a video player, the magnificent 1 pixel arrows you have on your carousel, on everything that the user must interact with, it must be sufficiently contrasted.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this double A or single A? Because I think double A.
Yeah. Same as the color contrast.
Is the color contrast not lower? Because I thought it was like 4.5 or something.
For the text, you have 2 ratio. You have 4.5 for the standard text, and for the big text, it's 3.
Ah, it's for like the
Yeah. If the font is bigger.
Yeah, the 18 pixel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Even in fact, it's really not that perfect because most of the fonts right now are really thin. So even if the height of the shape is big, as the shape of the letter are really thin, maybe it's not perfect to have this kind of distinction, but it's the case right now. Let me increase text spacing. So once again, for people with low vision, if you are a low vision user, most of the time what you will do, either you will use a software that will change the display of the website. For example, some people will not be able to read content on a white background, so they will change the color of the background to black for everything. So most of the time they do it by a software or directly in the preference of the systems. But also most of the time they will change the letter spacing, the word spacings, the spacing between paragraphs, or something like that. So what WCAG have done, they've done like quite a study to look what is the most familiar settings that people with low vision will use, and they have decided that the website must be able to support that the user will increase the line height 1.5, the font size, the padding bottom of the paragraph must be double, letter spacing and word spacing can be increased. And to test that, there is a little bookmarklet that you can use to test on the website. So it's just something that you drag and drop. I've done it, so it's here. So when I activate, you don't see because you don't have anything. So when I apply this bookmarklet, you see that it will change the font, increase the spacing of the word and the letters. So you will say, okay, well, it's not a problem for many of the websites. It will depend on the way the website was done, because, for example, if you have done like overflow hidden, or if you have used some absolute positionings, even if there is no more reason to do that, but if you still do that, it will create some issues. So, for example, on this magnificent website, if I do that, you see everything here is cut, so I'm not able to read the content.
That's a plus.
It's okay. So it will really depend on the way the front-end developer will manage the CSS of this kind of blog. If you use fixed height, overflow, absolute positioning. But most of the time, if you do it correctly, you will have no issue with this kind of thing. Okay, let me control content on over and focus. This one is a bit more complicated. there is less and less content on the website because as we have mobile and there is no over on mobile, there is only touch. So, for example, the low use years of drop-down menu that will open when you move your mouse over the navigation bar is quite finished, but there is still some websites that do that. When you do that, for the moment on WCAG we don't have anything to prevent this, and we still have nothing to prevent it really, but now we have some rules to let the user control a bit more this kind of menu. So for example, now you will have to be able to dismiss the menu without moving your mouse. So basically if you keyboard focus, go on the link and it displays a menu. Then if you use the ESC key, it will close the menu automatically. So other kind of elements in the tooltips. So if you have like a custom tooltips, not the title attribute that creates a default tooltip, but you have a custom one, you will need to integrate this kind of rule, so it can be dismissed without moving pointer or focus, stay visible when pointer move on it, and is persistent until user move pointer or focus out. So a lot of theory. I will give you an example. Again, so here, for example, I have some custom tooltip. If I switch off again. So you have some custom tooltip, okay? So as this script is quite accessible, for sure it works also when I am using my keyboard. So it's WCAG, current WCAG is requiring this. And also if I use my ESC key, you see that it closes the tooltip. But if I'm not able to do that, it means that, for example, here, if I want to read the content below, I need to use my keyboard once again to move the focus out. So in some case, for example, if my viewport is maybe here, you see that it scrolls, so it's a bit difficult to really see, to be able to read everything. And also, the problem with this kind of menu is that when it's not done correctly, if you try to move the mouse over the block, like it's the case like here, most of the time the tooltip will close. The problem is with that is that for people with Zoom, for example, here you see, I'm not able to read. If I want to read, I have to move my mouse over the tooltip. Otherwise, I will never be able to read the content of the tooltip. So it's really, really problematic if I don't integrate this kind of features. All the user with a Zoom like that will not be able to read the content of the tooltip. So if it's just like decorative tooltips, not really important, but if you have some really important information, like for example, for I don't know, for password input, if you display the mandatory number of characters and in a tooltip, I don't know why, it's not a good idea, but in some case you can have that, but you have to do it correctly. Avoid shortcuts. So you may know the access key attribute in HTML. It's an attribute that allows you to create shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts in application. Not many people use that because the problem with that is that for screen readers user, like every keys in the keyboard is already used by something for the screen reader. You have like maybe 5 or 6 keys that are not already used. So most of the time it creates some conflict when you use this kind of attribute. But this new criteria is not about that. This new criteria is about the fact to add, if your application, in your application you have created what we call single character key shortcuts. For example, you are on a website and you push the letter P, for example, and it will trigger something on your website. You say not many people doing that. I'll give you an example. Okay. I will explain the problem with that. So, for example, I am on Twitter, and on Twitter website, if I use the M key, it will open the new message dialog. Okay. So the problem with that is for people with speech recognition, because the way the speech recognition software work is that you speak to your computer and it will interpret what you say, and most of the time you try to input text equivalent to what you say. So if I am on Twitter website with my voice recognition software, and I know I said mother or morning, because I'm saying a word with the M key, the keyboard will automatically trigger the opening of the dialog. So it will be very annoying. But I can use the website, but I might not speak at all in front of my computer or turn off my recognition software. And you still can do that, but you will have to follow some rules. Mm-hmm. So user must be able to turn it off or to remap. So for example, if you have decided to use the M key, you must be able to change it to, I don't know, Z or anything else. Or to activate it only on focus. For example, if I move my focus on the create new message button, and then instead of using enter key, I want to use the M key, it will work in that case. So just a quick display of for NVDA. NVDA is a screen reader, so you see every key that are already used by the screen reader, so there is not a lot of keys that are not already used. Let me use one finger only, okay? Designer will hate me once again. Every complex gesture can be achieved using one finger only. So if you have some interface where you have some swap, pinch, rotate, everything that need 2 fingers or gesture, you will need to have a button in the interface to be able to activate the same feature using only one action. So for example, if you have this kind of carousel with the last item just partially visible, that will let you understand that there is something else, you will need to have some dots or arrows or what you want to ensure that the people that can't be able to do a gesture like a swap will still be able to work with the carousel. Because there is another way to do it, but basically, for example, on this kind of carousel, you can decide that every image is a link or a button, and when you use keyboard, for example, everything will receive focus and it will move automatically every carousel and will show you every slide. But it will mean that it will force user to go everything. So if you are a Netflix user, you know that this kind of carousel is endless. You have like 50 or I don't know how many elements per slide, so it will be very, very long to use. And if I'm not interested by one of the section, I don't want to be forced to go inside everything. So Once again, for the designer, now you will have to add some button in your interface. So why WCAG is requiring this? It's for people with motor disability mainly, because they will have some difficulty to do complex movement or precise movement, like a rotate or pinch, and also for voice recognition users, because for them, for example, doing a swipe with voice, it's achievable, but it's quite challenging because they need to go to another way of interacting with the screen. Basically, they can do drag and drops, but they need to use something that will create like a vertical bar, and then the dots will move down until the part of the screen they want to interact with, and then another bar will appear, and then they will need to wait until the time they want to drag something. So it's really long to achieve this kind of movement if you have a screen reader, voice recognition user. Let me cancel my actions. So this one is exclusively focused on mobile, and it's quite technical. On mobile, you can decide to trigger something when the user touches the screen or when the finger is moving up of the screen. So if you trigger something when the user touches the screen, it will be problematic because for people with motor disability or for screen reader user, most of the time they touch the interface without really wanting to do that. So they can trigger some action without wanting it. So you need to ensure that you trigger everything on the mouse, the finger up, the touch end and not touch start. This way, the action will be only triggered when the user moves the finger up. So once again, there is some exception if you are doing like this piano application. Once again, you don't want the sound to be triggered when you move up because it's a piano application. You want the sound to be triggered when you have your mouse on the key. I think there is a piano player on the WCAG specification. Let me call things by the name. Once name, it's for people with voice recognition software. Example of that. I'm on a website. I have an e-commerce website. Visually, I have a button, button. I absolutely failed, but and if in source code, in fact, I have this kind of code, a button, but with Bestelen inside, but I have an area label coffin. It's not be usable for people with a screen recognition, voice recognition software, because for accessibility, the name of the button is coffin, rouge Dior, etc. So if the user say Bestelen to activate the button, it will not trigger the button because the button, it's not the name of the button in the source code. So it's not really common to this kind of issue, but in some case we can have, for example, if you have like, for some people have tried to do well. So for example, if they have an OK button to submit a form, and they have put a title or an area label saying submit this form to search on your website to make it clear that it will search on the website. As the OK term is not in the label of the real label, the real name of the button, the user, the voice recognition user that will say OK, submit or click OK, it will not activate the button because the name of the button is not OK. This one is quite similar to the orientation issues. Don't force me to move. For example, on Google Maps, I don't know if you know it, but if you check your phone, you have something appearing saying that you can submit a problem, submit some comment, or add an address. And if you are not able to check your phone, you will never have access to these options. And some of them for some of them you can access them using the burger icon. But I think, for example, for adding an address, you will not be able to add an address if you don't check your phone. And also, on the opposite side, for people that have some tremor, it will be very annoying. So if you are not able to turn this off, every time they have their phone, as they have some tremor, it will always display this kind of menu. For sure, once again, there is some exception if you are doing like a running app, because the running app is based on movement, so you have to move to record some data. So it's a feature of the application. Let me know when status have changed. So, for example, for people with screen reader software, or for a blind user, if a page is updated and they don't know that the page has been updated because, for example, they are currently reading the end of the page and there is a live update at the top of the page, if nothing announces that there is an update, they will never know that there is an update. So in some cases it will be problematic because maybe it's an error message, maybe it's something saying that the application is currently busy or something like that. So user screen reader user must be aware of change of status. So what is a change of status? It's an important information provided to the user in the page without any reload, visible or not. On the success or result of an action, on the waiting state of an application, on the progress of a process, or on the existence of error. It's important to understand, for example, if you are submitting a form and you are moving your focus, the keyboard focus on the error message, it's not a change of status because you are moving the focus, so the screen reader will read the new message based on where you move your focus. But if you do like live error messaging for using Ajax, for example, so you are filling your forms and then you submit the button and everything appears, but you don't change the focus, you don't move the focus, then you have a change of status. I'll give you just an example of that. Imagine that you have a search bar, and when you start inputting some text inside, it will say that the search is in progress, and then it will display some suggestions. After your input, you will have to add a div role status, and inside this div, you will put everything that is displayed based on what you input. There is different way of doing that for sure, but here, for example, if I'm doing that, every time I type something and there is an update here, the screen reader will read the update in this part of the page. If you really want to have like, because if here you create like maybe a list of 20 results, it's a bit annoying to have 20 results read each time I put a letter, so I just want to have this part read. So I will move this, only this in this part in the div role status and everything else out of this part. So everything, for example, for this kind of search, error messaging, if you, for example, you have a pagination, an Ajax pagination, then when you, or maybe progressive loading of the page, infinite scroll. I hope you know, but
Yeah.
not, but maybe you have. The user need to know how many results he have, or how far he is from the end, or something like that. Because you don't have visually you don't have the information, and it's blind users. That's it for me. Thank you.